Hi guys, this is Jane Celia, Bethesda Star, i.e. Targeted Shaman. I wanted to talk today about who they are because I'm always using the word they when I'm referring to who's targeting us and who's doing a lot of other things. And I've been using that term for a couple decades, and I wasn't sure what it meant when I started saying it, but I just intuitively knew there was a they. So this is how I see it, and this is from actually a shamanic, from my own shamanic journeys, which is tapping into the collective consciousness. It's also intuition, a feeling, which is sometimes tied into shamanism, not always. Sometimes you're getting hits from God or your ascended masters, and some of it is historical. I've studied James Churchward, who was an investigator, and many other people. And I have put together folklore and myth and other forms of perceiving the world, not just linear cerebral. So I put this together really quickly. I wish I could screen share, but I don't know how to do that yet. And I don't know if this is backwards or upside down. So, yes, basically, I do feel like all our problems on the earth right now are from reptilians, almost 100%. War, disease, torture, enslavement, inequality, cancer. I think it all comes from a reptilian lineage. We lived, and the biggest secret on earth right now is that we really did live on a paradise earth. And some people call it the Garden of Eden, utopia. But we lived there, and I've seen it in my shamanic journeys. In fact, I saw it again today when I was talking to Isis about the reptilians, and it is vibrant beyond belief. We don't have those same colors anymore either, or vibrancy. There was no hunger. There was everything grew, trees, and there was enormous vegetation. You didn't have to kill animals. That wasn't even thought of. That came along again with the reptilians. Hundreds of thousands of years ago. They were they didn't think twice about tearing apart an animal or a baby, and that's where that began. We were all vegetarian, and we lived very, very long lives, much longer than we live now. And the animals talked to us, and we talked to them, and they helped us. They were friends, sort of like shamans have now, that power animals are our friends, and we can relate to them, and we share information and wisdom and direction, and what's the next direction for humans. And they shared their wisdom, and they lived in a utopia too. All our needs were taken care of. The earth is beyond magnificent. um, so that was, I'm thinking, not thinking, but I've been told over and over by my guides, I think especially Isis, whenever I close about 500,000 years ago, we lived on the Garden of Eden. So we had a reptilian invasion, and I asked Isis about it again right before this video. And I didn't really want to video the channeling. Sometimes it could be a lot of slow, and I'm sitting there with my eyes closed, and that's not very interesting. So what I saw was they were like vomited out of another planet, and that's what it's like, a propulsion. They didn't leave on their own accord. There was nothing nice about it. They were thrown up out of a planet. And they came to Earth, and it seemed like it took a long time, and I'm not sure why, because space travel is very fast usually. And I think they came and then they left. They came and it was kind of deserted, and that might have been actually the dinosaurs. I don't know. My approach is spiritual, so I don't keep in touch with necessarily the scientific concepts of evolution. I think that's one source of truth, but not the only one. And I don't dismiss it. And then they returned again. And, they were studying us very closely because we had this utopia, and we had this creativity and beauty, and they watched from afar for a while. Then what I was shown by Isis is they started to infiltrate through the web of life and another dimension. So they were influencing our thoughts. Again, that might be what the Bible refers to in the Garden of Eden. when the apple was eaten and the snake was there, it might have a totally different meaning. But I believe that humans started to listen to the reptilian messages that were being transmuted to them by the reptilian vibration. The reptilians are they're thrown out of every planet that they don't destroy. They are completely they they're nothing like us. They eat, kill, rape, and torture. That's all they know. That's absolutely and we today we call that kind of brain psychopathic, but it's also a reptilian. The reptilian brain is overdeveloped, and I believe that's from reptilian ancestry. That's so you don't need to wonder how these people can torture us. And I'm skipping a lot, but basically there is absolutely no empathy. There's none. It's like I guess an alligator, skimming the surface and looking for food. They eat, and that's all they know is eating, power, rape, torture, and that's it. And that's why they keep getting thrown off of planets. So they came here to this fruitful planet. It was wide open. We're very naive because all we'd really known was this utopia. And then they began to assume human form and interbred with humans. And again, skipping ahead, thousands of years, this slow integration. Then they became the royal lines. They were the head of every single country, whether it was China or Japan, Australia. They were the reptilian lines, and they usurped true royalty, which used to be spiritual, to power. So we have, this reptilian leadership at all points all over the earth. And so, as I saw in here, I show that. I don't know if you can see that. Every single country was taken over thousands of years ago. So you have the leaders, and then the leadership filters down to the next level, which I have as political, religious, churches, education, law. Slowly they're infiltrating, and they infiltrate by a couple of different means. One is torture and intimidation. If anybody steps out of line, they'll torture you. And then they do have a certain sort of they have a intelligence that allows them to get power. So they'll often go to the top of most associations just through sheer literally stepping or killing or destroying people's lives to get to the top. So that's how they get to the top of some of these organizations. And then it filters down again to all our FBI, CIA, mafia, the Illuminati. Those are all completely infiltrated at the top levels. I guess Dr. Horton refers to as all systems go. All systems at the top have been completely taken over at this point. She calls them psychopaths. I call them reptiles. Reptilian brain and psychopath, I believe, is a synonym or metaphor. So, and then you have below that, you have the ones that we're sort of dealing with, police, fires, social services, courts, fusion centers, psychiatry. MK Ultra, the mind control torture, was brought to America by Americans from Nazi Germany, and as a way to start to control humanity once again. And then so we're also below that, gang stalkers, remote neuromonitoring, illegals, hired thugs. But it all begins with this reptilian brain. All wars are a result of reptilians just wanting more power, more energy. And also, this is a very important fact, they thrive off of the energy of torture. So war is perfect for them. They also create a lot of refugees, and they create a lot of orphans. And they are the Satanists, and they need children for child sex trafficking and for satanic rituals. So the wars create a lot of orphans, and and then you see that in Haiti and South America. what is happening at the border right now is dividing our country. I believe, again, it's a reptilian agenda through George Soros, to push to push the immigrants to the border. I think they've been paid to come. I'm sure there is some, there is everywhere in the world there's oppression and problems, and but I think these people were paid and brought to our border, and the purpose was to divide our country, because that's what it's doing. It's just tearing us apart. And I think they're going to be used for child sex trafficking, and to try to get Trump out. Trump's not the perfect guy, but he's not a Satanist. And that's saying something for the kind of scum that run the world, the reptilian scum that run the world. So they want him out. They thought the reptilians wanted Hillary in because she's completely corrupt and evil. And I say that from, seeing her soul and reading her soul energy. And she is very much into child sacrifice, sex trafficking, child sexual abuse, and they love those kinds. So that's the kind of leaders they want in there. And Trump is not like that. Again, he's no angel, but he's not aligned with the reptilian agenda, which was kind of shocking to them. So they're hoping that this immigration agenda will get everyone hating him. And they're saying kids are in cages. Yeah, well, kids are in cages all over the world, in underground military bases. In Canada, they're being thrown off yachts after they're raped. It's absolutely all over the world. It's happening with the royals. So again, I'm not dismissing it. It's the same problem that we've had for centuries, and that's going on all over the world. I happen to think that the immigration issue at the southern border right now is political, and that they're going to use those children for child sex trafficking, and also to divide our country left and right, and also to try to get Trump out of office at the next election. And also that basically it's a political agenda. I also think that the Democrats need illegals right now to vote, because most people have woken up to the corruption in the Democratic Party. And I was a Democrat my whole life, so I'm not blaming anybody, until I realized what was happening, with Hillary Clinton. So they are the reptilians in their myriad of forms on Earth, filtering down. If you're on remote neuromonitoring, you're getting monitored by someone who is either possessed by a reptilian. They have no mercy. They're being controlled from off-world by a reptilian. And then you have all the weak humans too that will, one thing about the targets is we can't be corrupted. They're more afraid of us than anything in the world. They're not afraid of activists, or terror, so-called terror. They're afraid of the people who can't be corrupted. And we are those. There's, I don't know how many, I guess 75 million people throughout the world are targeted. I think that's 1% targeted in Ireland, put out that information. And we are the ones that have the creativity, the imagination, the power. We're really the alpha humans that are going to take action, and we're going to do things. We're going to stop this. And that's why they're trying to kill us. And they've done it century after century after century after century, whether it's the Crusades or the Inquisition or this, that, the other thing. So, again, the reptilians are, the reptilian brain, is at the root of this. The actual appearance of reptiles, I see them in shamanic journeys. I see them watching me. They don't dare to come too close. But they are watching, they don't like what I'm doing. I've heard people say they've seen others shapeshift. Who was it? Kevin Kino or Knieve? Someone just reported to me they saw him shapeshift. I've never seen that. I do see them in the shamanic journeys. They're watching me. So, and they, unless I'm off base somehow, with whatever, whatever my personal flaws or weaknesses are, I got to just stay pretty strong so my energy feels strong. And all my guides and power animals and angels are around me all the time. You can't really have any weaknesses, any of us, especially addictions, something like that. So I've kind of overgeneralized, or this is a really general overview of the reptilian agenda. And of course, the police that show up at your door, they think they're following orders. Well, they probably have a percentage of reptilian DNA, or they're very weak, or they're just generally corrupt. So the reptilians can manipulate humans, some humans more than others. So it's also a process of manipulation. Segregating us all from each other so we don't know what the other one's doing. And some of the MK Ultra and the child sex trafficking, people may be working on, weapons and whatnot, but they don't know the total outcome. So you can't really call them reptilian, but I would guarantee if you go to the top of that corporation, wherever it is, maybe it's Honeywell. There's a lot of other ones. I'm not implicating Honeywell, but you're going to find, as Dr. Catherine Horton says, a psychosis, because real humans cannot do this to each other. And the greatest secret on earth, is there was a paradise earth, that's where we belong, that's where we thrive, and that's where we're going to go to again once we get rid of these reptilian beings. And one of the strongest ways of doing that is becoming empowered. Doing what everybody is doing right now is making videos, creating orgonite busters, because it was almost in some huge plan. It was the perfect plan to make us powerful, to make us more God. Because if it wasn't for them, what would we be doing? Just doing the job and thinking everything's fine, and we wouldn't really become powerful human beings in expressing God. And the false gods talked about in the Bible were not trees and crystals, and those are things given to us to help us, but the reptilian gods. They presented themselves as gods, and they're not. They're the opposite. So again, I'm Targeted Shaman. Please take a look at the video Romola D did. It's excellent. It describes my story in detail. It's shocking. A lot of you won't believe it. Well, actually, if you're targeted, you will believe it. So yeah. Also follow my classes. There's a way for you to work in the spiritual world, to empower yourself, to untie some of the cords that, you've got energy cords to probably a lot of your perpetrators. You can untie them and break them and liberate yourself on the spiritual level, and as above, so below. So what you do on the spiritual level is going to manifest on the physical eventually. So lots of love. Please comment, share, like. If you want to donate, I have a Patreon account, Jane Hatch, to keep these videos coming and enable me to finish my book, Bethesda Star, Return of the Queen. It's about reclaiming humanity and our planet and returning to a paradise earth, and how we're going to do that. So lots of love. Happy 4th of July, whatever that means these days. Bye.